organized by the Bachelor of Business Administration Studi Program, Faculty of Administrative Science, Universitas Brawijaya. My name is Cintalita Panorama, and it is my great honor to serve as the Master of Ceremony for today's program. The topic of today's program is Empowering Future Business Leaders through Global Innovation and Sustainable Transformation. This program is designed to improve the quality, capacity, and competence of students through teaching collaboration between lecturers of Universitas Brawijaya and international academic. We sincerely hope that today's session will give meaningful insight, expand student global perspective, and help prepare them to become future business leaders. Before moving to the next agenda, I would like to kindly remind all participants to keep their microphone mute during the session. Participants are also welcome to turn on their cameras. Now, we will continue to the documentation. I kindly ask all speakers, lecturers, and participants to turn on their camera. All right, I will wait for you all turning the camera.
Good day, Ivan.
Let's start with the first slide. 3, 2, 1. Second slide, 3, 2, 1. And the last one, 3, 2, 1. Thank you everyone for your cooperation. All participants, now we will continue to the next agenda, which is singing the national anthem of the Republic of Indonesia, Indonesia Raya. May I kindly invite all participants to sing respectfully from their perspective, please. Thank you. All participants, we will now move to the next agenda, which is the welcoming speech and officially opening of today's program. The speech will be delivered by the head of Business Bachelor of Business Administration Study Program, Faculty of Administrative Science Universitas Brawijaya, Ibu Dr. Ani Rahimah, SAB, MAB, PhD. To Ibu Ani Rahimah, we respectfully invite you to deliver your remarks and officially open the event. The time is yours.
Oke, thank you Mbak Cinta. Good morning, everyone. I hope you find a good day today, and our distinguished speakers, Prof. Jerome, respected colleagues, and dear students and the future leaders. It is an honor and pleasure to stand before you today in this Global Insight Forum, where we gather not only to exchange ideas, but also to reflect on the kind of leaders the future truly needs. When we speak about the future, we are not merely speaking about time. We are not merely speaking about the capability. We are speaking about uncertainty, transformation, disruption, and opportunity. We are speaking about a world shaped by digital acceleration, artificial intelligence, global competition, climate exchange, social change, and complex human needs. In such a world, leadership can no longer be defined only by position, authority, or title. Leadership must be defined by vision, adaptability, courage, empathy, and the ability to create meaningful impact. Future leaders, not only simply those who will occupy important offices tomorrow, they are those who, starting today, learn how to think beyond themselves, how to respond wisely to change, and how to transform challenges into opportunities for growth and contribution. Dear my students, the world you are preparing to enter is very different from the world previous generation experiences. Today, knowledge is abundant, information moves instantly, and technology evolves faster than ever. But in the middle of this progress, one question remains deeply important. What kind of person will lead this world forward? The answer is not merely some intelligent, not merely some ambitious, not merely some skilled. The future needs leaders who are grounded in values, open to learning, and able to work across differences. This is why global insights matter. There is one important thing we must remember. Leadership does not only begin when you receive position. Leadership begins when you take responsibility. You do not need to wait for the perfect moments to begin. The future is not something that simply arrives, it is something that simply by the choices. This Global Insight series from Bachelor of Business Administration Study Program Forum inspires us all of to dream bigger, think deeper, and lead better. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ibu Dr. Ani Rahimah, for the warm remarks and officially opening of today's Global Insight series. All participants, we will now continue to the first main session of today's program. Before we begin, please allow me to introduce our moderator for the first session. Our moderator is Miss Lain Nafisa Arifin, BBA MSc, a lecturer of the Faculty of Administrative Science Universitas Brawijaya. She has strong experience in business, administration, finance, and international education. She studied in Ireland and Japan. With her knowledge and experience, we believe she will guide today's discussion in a clear and interesting way. Without taking more time, let us welcome our speaker, Ms. Layin Nafisa Arifin. To Ms. Layin, the time is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chinta. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, distinguished professors, respected lecturers, honored guest lecturer today, and dear all of my students. Welcome to today's international seminars entitled Empowering Future Business Leaders Through Entrepreneurship and AI. It is truly a pleasure to see such enthusiasm. I know it's a long weekend. It's a Friday morning where in Indonesia we have holiday since yesterday, today until Sunday. So it's part of your holiday and you're so enthusiastic to wake up at 7 in the morning for these sessions. That's really, it really made me happy to see all this enthusiasm. Okay, so today's topic is really important, especially in this world of shaping business and society. In this whole evolving world, future leaders are expected not only to understand emerging technologies such as AI, but also how to develop the entrepreneurial materials and encourage innovations, adaptability, creativity, and sustainable impact, which all of you will be part of it even from now on. So today's seminar will provide us with valuable insight on how entrepreneurship and AI can work together to create opportunities, solve complex business challenges, and prepare for future leaders for the digital economy. And today we are very honored to welcome our distinguished speaker, Professor Jeremy Donovan. So he is a professor from Swinburne University. Professor Donovan completed his Bachelor of Commerce in 2002, his Master of International Politics in 2004, and his Doctor of Philosophy in 2008, all from University of Tasmania. He also earned a graduate certificate in learning and teaching in higher education from Swinburne University of Technology in 2016. Currently, he serves as a professor in entrepreneurship and innovations at Swinburne University Technology, Australia. Prior to his academic career, he has several leadership experience and roles in academic environment and in industry as well. He actively engaged in entrepreneurship and technology commercializations. He's the co-founder and chief operating officer of Sunfit Technologies and MDTech, companies specializing in innovative detections and scanning technologies. And his entrepreneurial experience bring practical insight into innovation management and business development. He also contributed internationally as an advisor to several government institutions, such as Ministry of Science and Technology in Vietnam, the Ministry of Planning and Investment in Vietnam and Laos, the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet in Australia. And through these roles, he has supported initiatives related to entrepreneurship, SME development, innovations ecosystem, and economic development across the Asia-Pacific regions. Within Swinburne University of Technology, Professor Donovan has numerous leadership roles, including discipline leader for entrepreneurship and innovations, associate director of the Master of Entrepreneurships and Innovations program, and major discipline coordinator. Professor Donovan's research contributions are really impressive. He has led and participated in many internationally funded projects in entrepreneurship, sustainability, innovations, international business and technology commercializations. If while I'm reading this, you might check his publications in Google. You'll see a lot of impressive quartile one from Professor Donovan, and that's really something that I'm. His work has received prestigious recognitions, including Teaching Excellence Awards and the Vice Chancellor's Future Focus Award for Research Commercializations. In addition, he has published extensively in leading international journals and books published by globally recognized academics such as Routledge. He has also supervised numerous PhD researchers in this area of entrepreneurships, innovations, and sustainability. And the list goes on. With his outstanding combination of academic excellence, entrepreneurial practice, international advisor experience, and innovation leadership, We are truly privileged to wake up this morning and to have him with us today. So, ladies and gentlemen, and all of my students, please join in giving a warm welcome to Professor Jeremy Donovan. Professor Donovan, the floor is yours.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that very warm introduction. And I think I've got to start by saying I'm very impressed that everyone's up so early in Indonesia. It was a bit of difficulty for the team to schedule with my clashes and timetable. So I appreciate all the students that have gotten up this early to actually hear me talk about my topic today. And I think it's really quite powerful hearing the opening remarks, not about my CV or about what I've done, but more so thinking about what your future looks like. So one thing that wouldn't come through necessarily in my profile is I have a real deep passion for looking at our students and thinking about planning and building what is their education so that they're actually well prepared for the future to take up, as the title of this Global Insights series suggests, the leadership of tomorrow. So what is it that you need to know? What is it that you need to know and start planning for today to better prepare you for tomorrow and the changes that we're looking at? And I have to acknowledge as well, I'm fortunate enough with University of Brawijaya to collaborate on a range of different projects and partnerships. Your rector, which is the same as our vice chancellor here, your rector is a really incredible leader who has very good vision, and I can see him planning for students across faculties, including the dean of your faculty. And it's really quite exciting from my perspective. I get to travel around the world and work with different universities, government partners, startups and industry. And it's exciting every time I come to Indonesia to work with your university to see that vision playing out for where we're creating the platform for young people in Indonesia to really excel and transform what's happening in your country. And I think Indonesia, like many other countries right now, and young people are sitting looking at what's happening in the world, geopolitics, economic development, sustainability challenges. And I think it can be quite daunting. I think it can be quite daunting at looking at what does actual future present for you. And all the challenges are being accelerated now. Everyone's talking about the impact of AI and how that's going to change and transform what you're going to experience and how the workplace or government agency or startup that you work with, how it's going to transform the basic work activities that you do. And it's really, really nice. I made a few notes just on those opening remarks about what you're confronting. And today I'm going to talk about it, and I'll share my slides in a moment. But I just wanted to pull out some of those themes, and I'll talk a little bit as I'm going through and lay in. Hopefully, I can get you to engage with your students and get some questions and some thoughts as I'm going through the presentation. Even though it's very early, hopefully you've all had a coffee if you drink coffee. I'm up to number 2 with my coffee, so I'm pretty charged and ready to go. But some of those kind of key themes about what we're talking about with you as leaders, you're coming out of arguably one of the premier universities in Indonesia. You should be very proud. So you've got very strong academic staffs. You've got an incredible rector guiding the strategy and engagement of your university. So you're coming out and you are actually expected to be the future leaders in Indonesia and more broadly and internationally. Indonesia's coming up. It's one of the most exciting countries in the world. For me personally, outside of Australia, I love Indonesia. It's my favorite country to come to because I think It's got a real global platform to have impact, not just in Southeast Asia, but more broadly internationally. And you've got the population and the people and the education system to support. But at the same time, some of these themes coming out from the opening discussion, you're faced with uncertainty. The speed of change now brought by technology, it's not new. AI AI's been around since the 1980s. We've been talking about AI is going to transform how we do business, how we do everything. But this is back in the 1980s. I was looking, they were talking about projections, 2 to 4 years, how it was going to transform. Now we're talking about cycles of 3 to 6 months, how AI is going to transform things. So technological change is not something new for us to think about and look at. Some of these other themes that came out in the opening discussion. So uncertainty, disruption, global competition, complex human needs. I don't think that you're confronted with anything new when we talk about these things. What you are confronted with is the speed of change and how you have to respond as young people building yourselves. And as I said, you're coming from a beautiful platform. You're from a premier university in Indonesia. You've got the leading educators and the very engaged international educators and researchers as well to provide you the platform to actually engage in these challenges. I think it's the speed and the adaptability and the ability to be flexible, to be responsive to complex problems. That's what's actually becoming more of a challenge than necessarily AI or the speed of change in technology. I do really like as well, because we are talking, and I don't want to emphasize this too much, but it is really something that you should all be reflecting. If you may be sitting at home or in your room or wherever you are right now, you might even be on campus, you should be reflecting. You have a social responsibility as the future leaders in Indonesia. And I really like that comment that it's not about when you get the authority or title to become leaders. You are leaders now. The moment that you step out of university, University of Brawijaya has been focused on creating that next generation of leaders. So you actually need to be starting to think, even without the authority or title to be leaders, what does it look like for my role, as in your role, to become leaders? What do you need to do to be there? What is that vision or meaningful impact? Or how do you respond to challenges and turn them into opportunities? And I really liked, it's not necessarily the ability about being the most intelligent person in the room. I'm often sitting, and you'll see why, I'm often sitting in meetings and working with companies and very incredibly smart people. And it's not about how smart you are. So you obviously, I'm talking to a very intelligent bunch of students right now, University of Brawijaya, like I said, top institution. So you've got the intelligence and you've obviously got the ambition, but it's more than that. And I'm picking this up from the opening monologue, is it's about your ability to go beyond that intelligence or that ambition. It's about your ability to have continuous lifelong learning. And some of these EQ skills, and I'll talk about this as well today, it's about being able to work across differences, being able to adapt quickly. This doesn't necessarily reside in that you're intelligent people or ambitious. These are characteristics that have been built up not just through your studies, but you as innate people looking around you at challenges and problems that you're going to face. So I'm going to start with that monologue really front and center when I'm talking about my topic today. It's not when you receive positions, it's when you're willing to take responsibility. And it's a future guided by your choices and how you engage in these uncertain times, characterized by disruption, about geopolitics, about global competition. It's really the choices that you make. And I'm excited looking at how many people have gotten up very early in the morning about the choices that you're actually making to learn from people overseas that are also seeing these changes and engaged in these changes. So without further ado, let me just share my slides with you. Lay in as well. If you can monitor any questions or comments in the chat as I'm going, and just call out because I won't necessarily be able to see. Okay.
If everyone got any questions or anything, and you're not sure, you can even say it or write it in Bahasa Indonesia, and I'll translate it for you. Okay.
Okay. Lovely. So one thing to remember is, we are a little bit different in Australia. It's not considered rude to jump in if you've got a burning question or comment, but I'll give you plenty of time as well if you want to jump in as well. So what am I talking about today? Bringing it all to a head. I'm going to talk a lot about entrepreneurship and some of these fundamental skills and some of those choices that you need to make as future leaders. I mean, and in fact, if you've got time, if you haven't done an entrepreneurship-based unit, it could be in innovation, it could be in creativity, it could be in entrepreneurship, it could be in startups. If you haven't engaged in a broader entrepreneurial ecosystem at University of Braga, I'll really encourage you right from this get-go. You've got an opportunity before you finish your degree. Do engage and start thinking about how you're going to develop up those skills. So I'm going to talk about entrepreneurship in particular, and put a lens on how we're looking at AI. And AI, as I said before, is just one of the elements of technological change that we talk about. It's the most prominent right now because with Gen AI and the emergence of Gen AI over the last decade and the accessibility that you have as young people, I use Gen AI every single day. It is incredibly accessible, but AI is only one, and Gen AI in itself is only one element of Industry 5.0 that we talk about, or you may be more familiar with Industry 4.0. There's a whole suite of these technological changes that we're seeing, and it's not going to be sudden impacts, but it's going to be progressive impacts where we need to be able to be entrepreneurial, to embed entrepreneurial values in how we approach these technological changes and integrate them into what we do. And I'll also note this is, and I'll talk about my particular focus today, but when I'm talking about entrepreneurship and when I'm talking about AI and technology, I'm not just talking about business. Now, a lot of you here may end up in business. You may end up in a range of types of businesses. So it could be from startups to established companies, multinational enterprises, but you may also end up in government agencies or departments or ministries. You may be working for social enterprises, or some of you may end up in IGOs, intergovernmental organizations working in Indonesia, so World Bank or UNDP. There's a whole host of international actors in Indonesia. And with your foundation that you set in your undergraduate degree, I think irrespective of what context you work in, having these entrepreneurial values and this entrepreneurial mindset is critical no matter what area you work in. And the only thing that I'll mention about that opening monologue about me is what you will pick up from my track record is I've had the opportunity to work across all of those contexts. Whether it's working now in deep tech startups, and I'll talk a little bit further about that later, or working with government partners, or working with our Prime Minister and developing up, cabinet memos and broader public policy positions, through to working with IGOs So I like the background here and talking about sustainability and sustainable impact. I've worked with Global Reporting Initiative. I've worked with Fair Trade. I've worked with all of these different types of organizations. And sorry, the light's just gone off. That's part of our sustainability initiative here at Swinburne. I've worked in all of these different contexts, and underpinning all of that are these distinct skill sets I want to really reinforce today. So whatever avenue you have going forward from today, and hopefully you get an opportunity over the weekend. You've got a long weekend and you've got a long day ahead of you with today's series, but hopefully you've got time to sit back and reflect on where are you going and how can some of these skills that we talk about as being critical and we acknowledge, and I'll draw on some international reports to emphasize this, how can you embed those skills or develop those skills moving forward from here to be a leader, not just in business, but whatever avenue you decide to go? Okay, so with that as a bit of a context, what I'm going to run through today, why entrepreneurship is such a critical one, and why entrepreneurship within the context of AI and rapid technological change is important for you to consider. As students building yourselves, all of you are taking the time to learn and adapt and start that journey. You're on a never-ending journey of becoming better versions of yourself, that lifelong journey of learning more. So if you can learn to learn and learn how you learn, I want you to put that in the context of thinking about what are those critical skills that you should be really reinforcing rather than necessarily just focusing on AI. You're going to be the next generation of future leaders for Indonesia and beyond, and these things will be really critical. I'm going to put all of this in a bit of a context of where I come from, so you have a bit of an idea of what I do at the moment, and I'll zoom in and give you a bit of a context and then talk about particular applications for how entrepreneurship and those entrepreneurial skills can inform you dealing with this rapid technological change that I've been talking about. And at the end, I'm going to have a bit of a reflection for you on what does this all mean for you moving forward from today. And this is something I talk to my students all the time about is forget about, what unit you're studying. Forget about your degree for a moment. That's a way of institutionalizing, codifying, and structuring and scaffolding your learning. But underpinning that in every single unit that you do at University of Braga and every engagement that you have moving forward from this point, you have the ability to learn, adapt, and develop yourself. So I'm gonna reinforce that at the end for what are some of the things that you need to think about as important skills to take forward from today that are going to serve you for the rest of your life so that you can be leaders, even if you don't have the title, but you can be leaders. And that could be, as a 2IC, the second in command, or it could be a beautiful term I learned in the past is demonstrating followership. So it can be an active contributor within broader teams. So there's all different ways that we can actually show leadership. Okay, so let's dive in a little bit further. And I'm going to pause on this first question. Now, I'm going to pause because I understand every single country I go to and every different context I go to. What is entrepreneurship and what it means for different people really varies across different contexts. And if anyone does a little social science and knows anything about social constructivism, I'm a big believer in our understanding of any topic is socially constructed by our own context. So there's no right understanding of what entrepreneurship is. The context that I work in, I'll talk about it further. We very much have a massive focus on entrepreneurship as a mindset that enables us to adapt, but also to have impact. And that's the ethos of our university, is how do we as people, with rapid translation and transformation of technology, how do we engage with that to create positive impact for the community that we operate in, whether it's from that business lens, whether it's from a scientific lens as an academic and taking what we do in our research, translating it and disseminating it and having impact through that, whether it's through commercialization and taking fantastic ideas and taking it to market to have impact. We have that very much strong ethos here at Swinburne. But let me just pause for a moment and ask you, what are your feelings around entrepreneurship? What does entrepreneurship mean for you? What pops to mind when you think about entrepreneurship? Is it a negative connotation? Is it a positive connotation? Is it solely linked to startups? Is it, talking about companies like Gojek and thinking about these entrepreneurial ideas that are in Indonesia that have transformed how we do things? So take a moment if you can and just put in a few little comments in chat or jump out if you want. What do you understand entrepreneurship as? What pops to mind when you first think about entrepreneurship? So this is usually in Australia. If it's early on a Friday morning, I do have a class on Friday morning with my students. I do like morning classes. I often have to have an awkward silence and wait for students to let the coffee kick in and start to think of some ideas. Layin, are we getting any thoughts put through on chat, any questions, any comments?
Okay. So everyone, this is basically an open and interactive sections. So if you guys have any thoughts about it, please drop it in chat, or you can put reactions or raise your hand if you wanna, or just open your mic right away. That would be fine too. And again, even if you can even express it in Bahasa Indonesia written or verbally, and I'll translate it for you. Okay.
And don't worry, you don't need to come on camera in case you're still at home. You're not ready to go out.
Some of the students are actually in schools.
I'm very impressed. It's so early.
So this is quite late for our first period of class. Our first period
Oh,
of class
really?
started at 6:30.
Oh, I'm
I
very
know,
impressed.
I
I,
know.
at 8:30, when I often have a class on Friday mornings at 8:30, and I know my students come in and it's like, oh, this is tough to get in. It's taken an hour to get onto campus.
Exactly. Yes, so do I. I never been to school in Indonesia, and I always went to school at 8:30, and now I'm teaching at 6:30. So it's a bit
Yeah,
adaptation
yeah.
for me as well.
Different stages in life, right? Have we got any comments, any questions?
Not yet, so
Not
far.
yet?
Yeah.
Okay, you're still warming up, even though this isn't too early for you. Okay, so let's have a little look at entrepreneurship a little bit further. And then I'll put a little context again on my perspective with entrepreneurship and frame it up from my perspective. But some of the other things I want to talk to you about is future leaders. So entrepreneurship is going to carve out how you look at your leadership roles, how you show leadership capability moving into the future. And entrepreneurship is a very catch-all phrase. So I'm going to provide you a little anchor for where I come from with when looking at entrepreneurship and all the different variations of entrepreneurship. But some of the other things I want to talk to you about, and I was actually just looking at this about 6 months ago. I was doing some presentations both domestically and internationally. And we were talking about, what does the future look like for graduates? And I actually just saw a report from University of Brawijaya and some great students working with the Innovation Centre, and my colleague Brilli and Pak Iqbal. That put together a bit of a report on the training sector in Indonesia and educational sector, and looking at what's the changing types of jobs that we're looking at between 2025 to 2030. What are the types of skills that are emerging, and how are we seeing that change from right now, and what are we looking at by 2030? So I'll have a bit of a look at that as well, and then bring that back for you to start thinking. What does that mean for you as future leaders in the types of skills that you should be focusing on?
Interesting.
Okay.
What type of
I-
skills?
Beautiful. Have we got anyone made any comments yet? I haven't warmed them up
Yeah,
yet.
we got one reaction from Marella. She said, for me, entrepreneurship is the process of creating, developing, and managing business to solve problems or meet needs while taking risks to earn profit.
Yeah, lovely. That's a really nice broad definition, and you're coming at it from a business perspective. So entrepreneurship fundamentally is critical for businesses. So we can talk about entrepreneurship and innovation are really inherent, interlinked concepts. They are different. So entrepreneurship, we talk about the whole life cycle. And I like to start with this quote. So Howard Stevenson, a Harvard professor, we consider him a bit of a godfather when we're talking about entrepreneurship, but he starts with a very broad definition for you to anchor yourself. And I like starting with this before I go to specific. So that definition with that business lens, if we just step back, and I believe this, entrepreneurship is very much about looking for opportunities. And those opportunities, it can be commercial or non-commercial, they're often beyond resources that we have in hand right now. So we have to create conditions. We have to create a scenario where we may not necessarily have the immediate capacity or capability to exploit that opportunity for whatever reason. So entrepreneurship fundamentally, from an agnostic perspective, by agnostic, I mean remove all of the different versions of entrepreneurship that we can have. Fundamentally, it's about people that look for opportunities and they're not constrained by the environment that they're in. So at the moment, I would assume, Layin, most of the students are based in Malang. Okay. And most of you are constrained by multiple things. Location number one. So Malang is one of my favorite places in Indonesia. It's a beautiful university town. I was just talking to Pak Iqbal. I need to come for a visit soon. I love the food in Malang. I usually only eat, at my age, I only eat one meal a day. But when I'm in Malang, I'm eating 3 meals a day, and then I've got to look at weight loss afterwards because I enjoy food too much. But you're sitting in Malang right now. That doesn't define how you actually pursue opportunities. You could be looking around at all sorts of things. It's the lens that you look at things. Some people look at a lens that everything is a problem. That happens around me quite often. People become frustrated and angry. We've just had our Australian budget released, so the national budget from our Australian government. And there's a lot of different views on changes that have happened. One of them, I'm an entrepreneur fundamentally, as well as an academic. And one of them is around capital gains. So how do we tax the benefits you have at the end of your entrepreneurial journey. So if it's in a startup and you list your company and then you have an exit point and you get money, the government's saying, well, okay, we're going to take any benefit you have and we're going to tax that now. And people are saying, oh, this is terrible. This is, such a bad approach. Some people are saying this is great because we can use that money to fund, social welfare programs or hospitals or education. So when we talk about entrepreneurship, it's looking at things in a different way. When I look at the budget, all I see is it's creating opportunities. And that's not contingent on the resources I have at hand. It then sets a train of thought for me. How do I create an opportunity out of what other people perceive as a problem? And that's really what we see across the spectrum. I don't know the story of Gojek, but for me personally, I can see how it's transformed how not just we do ride sharing, but how we look at all sorts of services being delivered in Indonesia. Everything from you may want to get a massage, you've had a long day, your shoulders are sore. Well, you get a massage. Or you may want food delivered to you on campus. Bam. It's transformed what used to be a much more difficult process to get access to a broad distribution of services. Even coming into Jakarta and being at the airport, I remember, searching out my Bluebird and trying to find, which is the right one to go for and how do I quickly organize. And oh my God, there's a long line for it and got to negotiate and then prices and everything else. Now I come in and bam, straight away, I'm actually using Grab at the moment, and Grab obviously comes out of Singapore. So you've got all these opportunities come up that people have defined, and they may not necessarily have the resources at hand, but they don't look at it as a problem. They see an opportunity. How can we transform the way that we do things? And I think Indonesia is just an absolutely incredible market for entrepreneurship. There are so many different opportunities, and I'm glad I have a number of Indonesian students, and I've had a range of PhD students, incredible PhD students from Indonesia, who have come here and they haven't had a look at the challenges and the resource constraints that they have to get their education, have that international view, not just leveraging off domestic education, but also getting those international and cross-cultural experiences. They haven't been constrained, and they've looked, how do I get this opportunity to broaden my mindset and to get this international opportunity? So yeah, I really want to anchor everyone right now. When I'm talking about entrepreneurship, I'm talking about redefining how you look at the current context, whether you're on campus today, right now, looking around the challenges you have, and it could be financial challenges, it could be education challenges, it could be even about your future employment challenges. How do you challenge or a problem to an opportunity? And that's what we talk about, the entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial mindset. And there's a set of skills that we always talk about underneath that. So what I'm talking about today for you as future leaders is how do you embed an entrepreneurial mindset and those skills that we associate with entrepreneurship to transform what could be a problem into an opportunity. And I'll talk about this as an example, an applied example, and I'm doing this right now with my company. Before I move on to talking about the context of different types of skills, different types of jobs emerging for what you need to be thinking about over the next decade, it's not just about the next 2 years when you come out of your degree. I'll talk about some of these jobs and skills. I just want to mention the example we had was a business perspective. Now, entrepreneurship can apply across a range of different contexts. So we can talk about social entrepreneurship. Do any of you sitting here today look at social challenges social problems that you want to address? How can you use entrepreneurship to address that? It may be about uplifting and supporting. I love this about University of Braga, that I know that you have this program to go out and work with villages, to support villages and uplift them. I know that you have social entrepreneurship, looking at research and how to engage with local communities, with agricultural communities, with Indigenous communities, to uplift and provide them different solutions to challenges that they have. So we have social entrepreneurship. In Australia, we obviously have an age structure that's getting older and older, and I feel a bit older and older every day, especially today. I forgot to bring my glasses, so I'll be squinting a little bit. But we have an aging structure, and we talk about seniorpreneurs. So we've got a cost of living crisis in Australia. Everything's getting more expensive. We've got the challenges, geopolitics, and the challenges with the cost of petrol, cost of diesel. It's cascading into our economy. We've got seniorpreneurs who are looking, well, we didn't save up enough money. We didn't plan for all of these changes to impact on our retirement. So we have a very strong social network, social security network in Australia. It's one of the benefits of Australia and the country. We like to support our elders through pensions and through structured support like Medicare and hospital access, dental access, all of these sorts of things. But it's limited. So we have this emergence of seniorpreneurs who are saying, well, we don't necessarily have the resources anymore. So what do we need to do? How do we be entrepreneurial to create our own opportunities and be self-sustaining? So before I leap forward, no matter what your perspective, entrepreneurship puts a stamp on how you look at the world, how you look at, is it a problem or is it an opportunity? And it doesn't matter if it's a social element. You could be working in social enterprise. You could be working in a government department. Every government is constrained in the amount of resources they can get from their people, as in through taxation, to focus on those key initiatives to try and uplift their people. So what do you do in that context? Entrepreneurship again. How do you look at things from an entrepreneurial lens? Well, maybe you don't have the financial resources, but how can you bring in things like public-private partnerships where it's not just the government, it's the partnerships with local businesses. And I see this happening in Indonesia all the time. How do you maximize the impact of government policies through partnerships with private enterprise? It could be, you're talking about your grandmother or your grandfather, and how do they create their own self-sustaining retirement and funds to support themselves, but they may also be supporting you go to university. So all of these different lenses are covered by the idea of entrepreneurship. Okay, so let's dive in a little bit more. And what I did love about this report, and it was quite funny because I've used these figures myself, was the students at University of Braga had part of their report looking at the World Economic Forum. So the World Economic Forum, now they're doing an annual Future of Jobs report. And essentially what they're pulling on is thousands of international experts and what are their perceptions and key data points. They're doing the hard work for us. And it's legitimate hard work. And we'll talk about what I mean by that when we talk about Gen AI. They're talking about, what does the world look like now? What does it look like in the past? And what are we looking at in the future? And I've had these conversations. I've been in higher education. I first started teaching, it's almost 25 years ago. Now, you might be really surprised. You might say, I only look like I'm 25 or 26. That was a joke, just in case you're wondering. So I started teaching a long time ago, and I remember talking to students way back then. We used to talk in Australia, and many countries have talked about this. After you graduate from university, you have potentially one job, and you may progress in that job up to senior management or executive, or you may stay in a similar type of job for the rest of your life. And when I started at university, we were starting to talk about, well, you're going to have 3 different organizations that you're going to work with. By the time I started teaching at university 25 years ago, we were talking about, well, now we're looking at you're potentially going to be working for 7 different organizations in your lifetime. It may be a similar job. 10 years ago, after the global financial crisis, we were starting to talk about, well, is it going to be a full-time job in different organizations in one field? Or are we going to start talking about the commoditization of your time, of your skills, and talk about you not having a full-time job? And 3 or 4 years ago, just as we're kind of coming out of COVID, it seems like we've confronted all the big issues over the last 20 years, global financial crisis, COVID. Now we're dealing with geopolitics and instability and conflict emerging. But 3 or 4 years ago, we started to talk about, well, yes, it's looking like now young people are looking at employment, and this is particularly in developed countries, that they may not have a full-time job, that they may have structured engagement. They may work 30% and do a short-term contract with someone, and then they may have a side hustle, and then they may have something else. Now, Indonesia, I know that you still have a robust graduate market, and certain occupations are more leaning towards maintaining that structure, but it's getting dynamic. Underpinning that, we're really very much talking from an Australian and international perspective. We're talking about, well, how do young people handle that? Now, if we just look at some of these figures here, so, there's a bit of an alarmist view. What do I mean by alarmist view? I mean, there's a bit of a fear view. This is an entrepreneurial mindset, a bit of a fear about all of these changes happening in the workforce. But broadly, what we're looking at is, are there going to be jobs? Is AI going to replace all of us? Do we need to worry about in 5 years, do we even have a job? Well, what we do actually know is we are creating jobs, but we're seeing a different way of creating those jobs and how do we optimize those jobs, and it's changing the nature of those jobs. So there are some jobs that are being displaced and then moving into different areas. And if you have a look on the right-hand side here, and I'll challenge this for you as well. So Indonesia will be a distinct context. So in Australia, I'll talk from an Australian standpoint. So if you just look down, what are the fastest growing jobs? What do we see? And hopefully you don't need to zoom in too much. My eyesight's struggling a little bit. But what do you see? You see, we're talking about AI technology-based jobs. So big data specialists, big data analytics, fintech engineers. Fintech has been quite big in Australia. Engineers. We're talking about ML and AI specialists. People that can actually train up the models that we're using. We're talking about software and applications developers, security management specialists. I was just talking in another forum with Indonesian partners about cybersecurity risks. Layan, is University Brawijaya using Canvas as your LMS?
We have our LMS, it's called Brown, that we just developed during the COVID. And we start to migrate there. Yeah.
Okay, so you've been quite lucky. This week has been quite a global sensation in the education sector, talking about security management specialists and cybersecurity. We use Canvas. So for all students, you obviously No, you use a learning management system to access your lecture notes. Maybe you do some online videos. Maybe you have discussion boards, things like that. Canvas is a US-based company who developed a LMS platform that has gone global. It's used, I believe, over 9,000 education institutions globally. 9,000. And education is a big sector in Australia. And my colleagues across Victoria have had the same experience in the last week. Canvas got hacked.
Oh, wow. It was
Um,
unexpected.
it's unexpected. They'd gotten in through a free resource, and then they started to steal data, and then everything has become a major issue globally. 9,000 different education institutions. Now, 9,000 doesn't sound like a lot. Indonesia has 4,000, last time I saw, 4,000 higher education institutions, but this is 9,000 globally. In Australia, at least 50% of Australian universities have been affected by this cyber attack. So security management specialists, really key role coming up. I've been talking all year about cybersecurity and what do we do? And I talk from a company perspective, a university perspective, and we just had a great example of the risks now. But then if we have a look through the list, a range of other things linked, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to go, can I go on mute for just 1 second? I've got a cough. There we go. Sorry, I'm still a little bit fluey over here. Winter is coming. If anyone watches Games of Thrones, there's a little fun saying I like. Winter is coming in Melbourne, and we've got a flu going around here at the moment. I've still got a little bit of a legacy of it. So if I do need to go on mute to have a little cough. But if we look through a lot of these jobs that we're seeing, fastest growing jobs, through to 2030, it's all talking about technology based. And you're sitting in a faculty of business, and you're probably thinking, well, okay, where do I fit in terms of that? Now, I wouldn't be concerned at all looking at that from a business education standpoint. Now, obviously, some of these roles you clearly don't align directly with. Some of you may be doing cybersecurity, some of you may be doing business analytics, some of you may be doing multiple majors and working across schools. But I think what this fastest growing list of jobs doesn't acknowledge, and this is changing, by the way, this is from 2025. What it doesn't acknowledge is the critical role of people. And yes, we're going to have more AI-driven interactions and more technology-driven interactions. But fundamentally, it's about that entrepreneurial mindset of people going into business, into government, into not-for-profits and IGOs to be able to manage other people using technology. Now, if you're doing comp-sci, computer science, I'd say to you start to get concerned. So we talk about here AI, machine learning. We talk about big data specialists, software and applications developers. Has anyone used Claude Code? Anyone used Lovable, Bolt? Have you used ChatGPT Code?
I think they're very familiar with ChatGPT.
So I'll give you an example why not to be reliant on ChatGPT in a little bit. But these are common platforms for us now. So we're very much talking already in Australia about you don't need to actually go in and be able to program anymore. So my colleagues, my department that I work in is business technology and entrepreneurship. And my colleagues are in information systems, a business discipline. And it's about the architecture and management of systems. It's not about coding. They learn a little bit of coding just to understand it. But those skills of actually going in and being able to hard code and program things are actually getting minimized now. So it has been the fastest jobs, but it's not going to stay the fastest jobs through to 2030. And when I talk about my example and my startup or scale up, sorry, we're not also talking the same thing. We've got a geophysical software pipeline, and it's very, very expensive in Australia to have high-end specialist software engineers to work on developing a completely custom pipeline. Now, some of these roles, like UIs and things like that, are just getting completely replaced. We can do it. And even me, I've got very limited technology skills. I use all of the Gen AI platforms. I can do coding, etc. Even me, I don't need to go and do it myself anymore. I can ham it out. And if I understand the proper architecture, and just let me know if any of my idioms from Australia are a bit confusing. Ham it out is one of them. And I can go work and develop up a code platform. I can do an app in 24 hours now. So if I started an app right now, I had a great idea. By tomorrow, I could have it launched on the Apple Store, fully integrated. And I don't have the programming skills to actually work it all out. Where it becomes critical for you as business students is not that ability to program. It's the ability to understand and integrate and wrap around AI, Gen AI, ML, all of these things that are now becoming codified and automated. We still, and it's specific to my company because I work in deep tech, we still have fundamental researchers doing R&D because of complex algorithms. So like I've got computational physicists working for me, for example, putting together really advanced physics models that you can't get Claude Code to do for you. So there's still a niche area. So I actually would say, yes, they have been the fastest growing, but we're actually seeing the pendulum flip now, which is it's becoming more niche and that really advanced level of coding and algorithm development. Now, those jobs are increasing, but there's a small handful. Like there's literally a handful, like 5 computational physicists in Australia that we could potentially get to work on our software pipeline. It's really difficult. So we have international people involved as well. So when you look at that as business students, do not be concerned. It's actually becoming more and more critical for the business skills and the entrepreneurial skills that I'll talk about today to engage with these very specialist roles when Gen AI in particular is making it's really democratizing access to programming. So I do talk a lot to my students 10 years ago, over 10 years ago. One of my startups I spent literally 10 years working on. It was quite painful. It gave me a lot of gray hair as well. But when we started, we did a lot of R&D behind it, and we didn't have a software engineer as part of our team. So we had to do contract software development. And to develop a platform at the time was going to cost us $250,000, which 10 years ago was a substantial amount of money for a startup. That meant, we'd have to go raise capital, or we could do a IP equity kind of deal for the work. Now, I wouldn't need to do that. So I actually had a platform developed for half the cost for a project recently. Very, very easy. Now it will be even less. I could feel quite confident because I understand about modeling language. I understand about system architecture from a business standpoint. I have a deep integration with customers and end users, so I can actually frame that from a business perspective. And then I understand how to wrap it into a business model. I could probably do it myself on code. I would need one of my colleagues, for instance, go through and just check the code for bugs. I'd need to do a bit of testing, but I could reduce the cost dramatically. So yes, look at the jobs. And I think, sorry, just give me 1 second again.
Even the weather here is really unstable lately. I myself also got cough in the past 3 weeks. That my regular drugs cannot make it better.
Hopefully it doesn't kick in too much with me talking too much. Sorry, just give me one more.
It's all under weather everywhere.
Okay, I think I'm good. I might need a little cough medicine soon. Okay, so I guess just to finish off on the point here, don't be concerned looking at what they say is emerging with what your skill sets are. Now, let me just jump on. So some of the core skills, and this is based on recently. So what we're looking at with core skills. Now, I'll link this with you as students. So one of the things that doesn't change when we're projecting out is your technological literacy, your ability to use these technologies we're talking about. But some of these skills are what we talk that underpin an entrepreneurial mindset. So when I say entrepreneurial mindset and embodying the entrepreneurial spirit, this is what I'm talking about. And we've actually codified this from a research standpoint. These are the critical entrepreneurial skills that we need young people to be having. And it's not going to change. And I'll talk about the right-hand side in a moment. So what we often start with is the ability, the analytical ability, how to structure and think through your decisions, analytical thinking. Now, that's what we really reinforce from a business standpoint when we're teaching you things. And ChatGPT removes that. And that's what I'm very reluctant for students to blindly use Gen AI. I mentioned before, I use Gen AI literally every day. I tend to use Claude or Grok. But I use all of the platforms, even have Copilot integrated into my emailing. I do use ChatGPT. It's the one that I started off on and quite comfortable with, but it doesn't take away from the analytical thinking and what you're learning in class, the theoretical lens and the understanding of how you come to decisions. What Gen AI does, it speeds up the process for you, but it has to be done grounded in an analytical approach with knowledge and understanding. So first one, resilience, flexibility, and agility. We talked about that in the opening discussion. These are all fundamental elements of being or having or embodying an entrepreneurial mindset. Forget about this leadership and social influence for a moment. I'm talking about these are the core things that we talk about that underpin an entrepreneurial mindset. Creative thinking. We talked about uncertainty, about risk, about global competition, the ability to think creatively and to adapt what you're doing quickly. I mean, these three ones that we're talking about here, 1, 2, and 4, fundamentally linked with an entrepreneurial mindset. The flip side, we talk about EQ and leadership skills, which is the things that you need to think about when you go into managing people, which is the second element I'll talk about today. So social influence, EQ, your ability to influence when you're not in the role. So right from the get-go of this conversation I'm having with you today, we were talking about it's not about getting the authority or the title, it's about making a choice when you're going to exert social influence. I know I don't have a lot of formal roles at the university anymore. I do a lot of the outreach and engagement with startups in particular. But I have incredible social influence with my colleagues. I can set a tone when I get into a meeting, even I'm not the most senior person there, or I'm not the leader or the line manager. What I say and how I behave sets a tone for everyone around me from my social influence. if I want to diffuse conflict or arguments, I can do that very easily as soon as I start talking. So this, point 3, point 5, point 7, these are really integrated and influential skills that it's not going to change. These are critical skills for you. Even right now, when you're sitting there listening to me talking, your skills are being demonstrated right now. How you interact with me, how you interact with your lecturers and the academics involved. At every touch point, and I do think Indonesians are very good, particularly University Brawijaya students. Your social awareness, your empathy, and ability to actively listen are actually really good. But having said that, at the same time, I think all of you have been challenged, and particularly from an Australian standpoint, that generation that you're living in has been challenged because not only are you facing these technology platforms like what we're using right now, these technology platforms are removing some of those social touch points that we have had the opportunity of previous generations to develop those skills. We have to talk. We have to get in front of people and to be able to develop empathy and rapport. Now you have to be able to do that through a telephone call or through a video conference. So it's changing a lens. In Australia, where I'm based, obviously with Melbourne, we had one of the most challenging countries in the world for people of your generation to develop these skills, the self-awareness, the empathy, the active listening, the social influence, because we were locked down for almost 2 years. We couldn't leave home. We had to do everything online, and that really impacted on a whole generation of young people. So I just say to you, looking at those skills on the left, these skills will not change for you as business students moving forward and actually being able to define you as business leaders, but not just business leaders, leaders in general moving forward. Entrepreneurial skills 1, 2, and 4, critical. It's becoming more and more critical as technological change happens. But these EQ and emotional intelligence and social intelligence, the leadership and social influence, and motivation and self-awareness and empathy and active listening, those are going to become more critical as well. And it's going to move concurrently for you to be able to manage teams, work in teams that are disparate, that are online, that don't necessarily have their job function set from year to year. Technology is going to change how they interact and their ability to interact with technology. On the right, what we projected last year is also changing very quickly. Number 3, I said before, is going to stay there, technological literacy. But cybersecurity is obviously a critical one that we're having right now. But AI and big data and data analytics and the ability to have skills for programming, we're literally seeing the democratization of computer science. So that's going to change. So they're important right now. We're still going to see the core of entrepreneurial mindset-based skills being predominant, and then we're obviously going to see some emergence. We see this, and I'm working with some companies in Indonesia on this, on environmental stewardship and sustainability. Some of these issues are going to be much, much more important, and you're going to be the future leaders that are going to have to address this as the impacts of climate change, as the impacts of environmental change, of natural disasters, impacts your country, it impacts my country. How do we respond to that? How do we integrate it, not just from a business lens, but more broadly in terms of our employment? Okay, so we're setting a bit of a context here. What are the emergent skills, types of jobs? What do you need thinking from a business leader, but more broadly as a leader of the future moving forward? So entrepreneurship front and center. AI, yes, but AI as an element of technological change and your ability to interact with that. Now, let me put a bit of a context. I know I've only got 15 minutes left. And I do want to bring this all back to you, but let me put a bit of context where I'm coming from. So you know where we're at in Australia and why a lot of the things I'm saying to you I can emphasize. So I come from a university. We've just moved into a new strategy. I said before, people and technology together. So again, that mindset, we're talking about an entrepreneurial mindset. Now we have entrepreneurship embedded across everything we do as a university. Every element of our strategy, we talk about creating an entrepreneurial mindset for students through to academics. And we're wanting to harness technology to have positive impacts for society. So we're quite similar to University of Braga. Some of the things that we wanted to achieve, we've already achieved now. We've got the next set of objectives, but we wanted every student to be able to have real experiences. I know Braga does very well with that. We want you to all get jobs. Quite interestingly for you, by the way, Swinburne is not a GO8, not a top tier university like University of Braga. We're considered a second tier university. We specialize in technology and entrepreneurship. But interestingly, in Victoria, we have the best university in Australia, University of Melbourne, in terms of rankings. I think it's ranked 25th in the world. So very high, very prestigious university. We have Monash University, you might have heard of. We have La Trobe, we have Deakin, we have RMIT. All of these universities, including Swinburne, are in the top 300, but we also have top 30 university in the world. Funnily, for Swinburne, we may not have the top ranking, we're top 300 in the world, but we have the top ranking in terms of student employment, and our graduates get the most income in Victoria, which is a good outcome. So we have a focus. I said before, I've got a personal passion. This is why my core values align really well with Swinburne. A core focus on students and what do you do in your degree to take you out of the degree to be successful. But we wanted to provide tech solutions for our partners across the spectrum, and we want to be a real entrepreneurial university globally with what we do. We kind of have an anchor point with all of our entrepreneurial activities. We have an innovation studio. I know Braga has, I think, 12 or 13 innovation centers. You have some incredible people over there working on it. If you can interact with your innovation centers, and I know that you do, but the more that you do to have that entrepreneurial mindset developed, we have an investment fund. We have an accelerator, pre-accelerator. We have all this support for student startups, academic startups. It's in our ethos. Part of what we do is to be entrepreneurial as a university. 20 years ago, if you talked about that, people would say, what are you talking about? Do your publications, work with students, get employment outcomes, and you're done. Nowadays, we fundamentally talk about whatever we do, we know it has to, number one, produce a good result for our students, but also have a broader impact on society and from an entrepreneurial standpoint. Now, let me give you a little bit of a context. We work in an ecosystem here. So we talk about the degrees and our students and how we can integrate that with our studio. What type of resources can we support students? How can we bring investors? In a couple of weeks' time, my students are going to be pitching to our investment panel. So we have external investors, we have internal investors on student-based startups. We have an entire ecosystem built around being entrepreneurial at my university. And have I got a video? No, I don't think. Oh, there you go. I just want to quickly give you an example of how we do this, and I'm going to bring it all back to you as students. So what you saw there, this is just a little video of muons. You're sitting at home or on campus right now. It doesn't matter where you are. If you put your finger out for a minute while I'm talking, if you do it, I'm impressed. In a minute, statistically, you'll have a muon travel through your fingernail. So these highly energetic particles coming from space, cosmic rays hit our upper atmosphere and then shoot out these different particles. You would have heard of gamma rays before. We've got muons that are passing through our body, through into the ground, highly energetic particles. I'm part of a co-founder. This is a technology developed. I said to you, I work with very smart people
This is
every day of the week. It's pretty cool technology. These are muon detectors. We actually have this in some universities in Indonesia, across Australia, US, New Zealand. But these are our two main detectors that you see here. So we can put, for example, you think about Indonesia, you have environmental instability, right? You have earthquakes, you're on the ring of fire. In Asia, where it's unstable movements, you have tropical seasons and floods. These devices, for example, you can put next to a bridge embankment, and we can literally scan through using muons and be able to do an X-ray-like scan of the embankment. So can we see air gaps opening up? Can we see composition changes so the bridge embankment may collapse? Or what I love in Jakarta, I know you don't have underground in Malang, but I love the underground in Jakarta. Very easy to get around, short stops, particularly if you're in central Jakarta. What happens if you do have an earthquake or you do have a flood in Jakarta? How do you know above the metro tunnel, is that all stable? Do we have the risk? Even in Japan, Japan has incredibly sophisticated infrastructure, so much better than Australia. Even in Japan, they have sinkholes open up because of the instability of the ground above their metro, where the ground just falls out suddenly. You suddenly have people dying and falling into these holes above tunnels because it's unstable. We can actually put our devices under there and scan up and give warning through concrete, through metal, through solid earth, do X-ray-like scans to pick up, are there any changes that we need to be worried about? So this is a technology. I work with physicists and nuclear engineers and a range of different scientists that are much smarter than me. But this is a technology coming out of our university in that entrepreneurial mindset. This wouldn't have gotten anywhere if it hadn't been for the business perspective. This would still be in a lab being used by our brilliant scientists. Most of you are using Wi-Fi at the moment to connect and listen to me. You're using Wi-Fi. I'm very proud of this. You're using Wi-Fi because that technology was actually developed in Australia.
no.
So a lot of people don't know that, but the underlying technology was developed through CSIRO. It's equivalent of BRIN, your National Innovation Agency. So what we do as a university, and this emphasizes what you do as individual business students, it's not about the technology. There's brilliant people out there doing things. And, we work with universities across the world and do R&D for our detectors. It's about how do you take that technology from a business lens? How do you sit there with an entrepreneurial mindset to look at how do you pivot into market? How do you sell it to a mining company that look at this technology? Who knows about muons? I didn't learn physics at school. How do you take this technology and then implement it in a mine site to make it safer? And this is just a few examples to give you a visualization of how it works. This top one, we're actually doing something similar to this. It's a mine site. You've got lots of mines in Indonesia. You go down into tunnels, you put our detectors there, and it should give you a visual of essentially they have a scan looking above them. So we can see what's actually happening there. We can tell you, are there, ores, mineral deposits? Oh, okay. You've got to be careful for your miners. There's a risk of collapse of the air gap. Here, for example, and including in Australia, we've had tailings dams where you put the byproducts, all the chemicals out of mining. They're massive. You think about like a big pool, but the pool is 3 kilometers wide. That's an average tailing storage facility with all these chemicals that are quite dangerous. We need mining, obviously. All of you on laptop or phone, all the components that you have into your phone come from mining. All the critical minerals in your phone have been produced from mining, so we need it. Anyway, here we show an example. These are our detectors, like the telescope one that you saw. We can actually scan through that wall and ensure that there's no risks of that wall collapsing and having all of that environmental damage. And you can search very quickly. Tailing storage facilities, on average, 2 to 3 of these massive dams filled with chemicals collapse every year. So it's a real risk, and more and more are collapsing. Just on the right here, you see a real example here. So this is a real technology developed by our brilliant scientists that we've taken out and we've commercialized, and now it's available to mining companies, infrastructure companies. And there's even muon cryptography, so you can even have an unhackable phone based on muons. And it's something we're doing with University of Tokyo. Okay, so that's my lens. I come from a deep tech specialization with entrepreneurship, but and my university talks about entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial mindset across a range of different lenses, but we focus on startups in particular. So I just wanted to use an example. So AI and technology, deal with it every day. Can I tell you about the components in our devices? Can I tell you about the physics behind our technology? Yes, I can tell you broadly about it, what it does. Can I get in there and do advanced computational physics? Definitely no. What I do is entrepreneurship. I have that mindset and I'm a leader in the space. And for my company, same thing with my university. We try to get graduates to think about this. And it doesn't matter, all of you sitting on the call today, you're in business administration, but you could end up in accounting and finance, sales and marketing. You could be general operations. Like I'm the chief operating officer, right? I'm across the full spectrum of the business. You could be in legal. You could be growth. Growth could be under BD, business development or sales. You could even be in product development. Doesn't matter where you're in the company, entrepreneurial skills are quite critical. But AI and Gen AI in particular is changing how we do things. So you do need to think about it. It's that technological literacy that I mentioned before. So if we dive down and we looked at sales and marketing is often quite a popular topic in Australia. If we looked at it now, we have so many tools, tech-based tools that are integrating AI that we can use in a sales and marketing function. And I don't know if you can see this very well, so I'll just give you a few examples. So you might have used GoDaddy to develop a website. You might have used Squarespace. I find Squarespace pretty easy. Does anyone use Canva to do design?
I think so. Yeah, they're very familiar with Canva in most of the assignment.
Okay, beautiful. Now, when you're using Canva and when you're using Wi-Fi, I want you to remember me. Canva is an Australian startup. Actually came out of a university. And the two key co-founders, there's three key co-founders, but the two, they're a couple that met at university and actually started Canva at a university in Australia. But all of these companies are integrating AI in different ways. So even if you're a marketing specialist and you're doing design and you're doing marketing paraphernalia, decks, brochures, reports, you're starting to use all of these AI driven platforms. You're doing market research as specialist market research platforms, much more sophisticated than ChatGPT. You could do lead generation. There's different types of tools, customer relationship management, maybe use Salesforce. I know we use Brevo, it's a little bit cheaper. Even to develop brands, we have technology now that's often AI based to support the generation of the work. It doesn't take away, though, our intelligence and understanding from a business perspective of how we use this technology. So going back to those key skill sets, it enables rather than directs us. If we dig a little bit further, so if I was talking, I mentioned before about different types of platforms and AI. There has in a lot of Western countries been a discussion of replacing a lot of jobs, a lot of job displacement, and a threat to those more basic roles at the bottom of the organization that tend to be filled by graduates. And they're a platform for you to grow within the organization. And in this case, that's why I mentioned computer science. Okay, you've got to start to look at broadening your skill sets out. Programming is not sufficient. Understanding the software architecture, the integration of programming into a business or into a government department or not-for-profit is now becoming more critical for computer scientists. And I know I've run out of time. I'm just almost there. So just very quickly. So we can get AI agents. And that's what we're talking about a lot now is how do we manage as business students when we're going into a new environment? How can we manage AI agents to do some of our work? Like I said before, how do we get these AI platforms and use AI agents to go up and develop our next report or to develop up our sales leads or our pipeline and manage us as people when we need to come in and demonstrate some of those soft skills I talked about, the emotive and rapport building and social influence. You've got AI to support you rather than drive what you do. So AI agents are able to do a lot of things, but I do love this example, and I'll just sit on. I've only got a couple of slides left after this. Just take a moment to read this. I got this off LinkedIn. Now, each Gen AI platform, we mentioned at the start about ChatGPT. ChatGPT has about a 28% accuracy. The last iteration might have improved it a little bit. Claude, which is the example here, Claude has about a 48% accuracy. And I'm just having a look around. I have to do a little bit of a search. I don't use cash anymore. But here's a 10-cent piece. I'm surprised I've got this. I thought I was going to pick out a foreign currency, maybe Japanese coins. This is a 10-cent piece. I love to use this as the example when I'm talking about Gen AI. If I flick this, I have a 50-50 chance, pretty much. And I won't go into the physics of it. A 50-50 chance it will come up heads or tails. Now, that's the same level of accuracy Claude has, and Claude is considered the most accurate Gen AI platform. If you're using ChatGPT, 1 in 3. So 28%, less than 1 in 3 chance of getting it right. It will learn from you, and it is learning from you what your preferences are, and it will tell you. It will tell you what you want to hear. So don't use it as a counselor. Yes, you're not looking old, Jerome. You're looking very good. Don't worry about it. It will tell you what you want to hear and not be impartial and objective. That's where we come back again to those skill sets that I'm talking about. Even the best Gen AI platform cannot do the thinking for you. It's simply a tool, a new technological tool, and it is accelerating change, and AI agents are particularly exciting, but it is a technology tool for us to do what we do. So I want to finish here. I know you had me finishing at 12 o'clock, and you probably need a break and stretch your legs and probably have a coffee after listening to me for an hour and a half. But going away from today, talking about you as future leaders, not just business, but future leaders. AI is transforming things, technological change. You know, we talked 100 years ago about, you know, the impact of calculators coming in. We talked about 40 years ago, the impact of AI coming in. Now we're talking about the impact of Gen AI and AI agents transforming how we do things. As young people, it's not about that for you. Technological innovation is always going to happen. The speed of it, yes, it's become much more quick, and the knowledge that you need to absorb and adapt, yeah, it's a lot more. You've got it at your fingertips now. However, what hasn't changed here, some of the things for you to think about and to work on moving forward, if you do want to be a leader, this is not going to change for you. Your ability to be creative and innovative. to how you look at problems. Are they problems or are they opportunities for you to solve? When you're going around today and you're looking at, there's challenges in everything we do. Me coming into work today, it took me over an hour to get into work. There are challenges with our public transport, scheduling, people management, distribution at different times. How do you look at that and not see a problem and see an opportunity for you to solve? Oh, this is a great opportunity to promote things if people are going to be stuck on the platform for 20 minutes waiting for a train. Your ability to establish and develop relationships, that emotional intelligence and EQ that you have, it's actually becoming more and more important to manage people and their ability with technological change. And I see that every day in what I do. Your social influence that you will develop and understanding every scenario that you're in, your interaction can start to influence and direct people, even if you're not, as we said at the very start of the conversation today. It doesn't matter if you're the leader or not, you have the ability to influence those around you, and you're coming from a really foundational level with University of Brawijaya. You're meant to be our leaders in Indonesia. Your ability to communicate clearly to different audiences. Hopefully I haven't spoken too quickly today and used too many Australian idioms, but this is becoming more and more important. I communicate across all different forums. I change my accent depending on the context. I repeat myself depending on the context, but I understand there's different audiences that I'm talking to and I need to level it. I'm not going to talk to you at a PhD level, like if I have professorial get together, we're not going to debate theories. With you, you need to understand, what's a relevant takeaway for you to make this meaningful. Think about your different audiences and how you're communicating. And it was me that said this at the start. Your ability to understand, learn, pivot, and use technology, right? It's you're being built to learn and to learn how you learn and to be a lifelong learner. It's about using the technology, not being intimidated by it, but how to quickly go through cycles of learning to be able to integrate technology as a tool rather than becoming a tool. So that's the end of my discussion around AI and entrepreneurship as business leaders. I hope you found it interesting, and I am hoping in the next couple of months I'll be in Malang. So if you see me around campus, please come up and say hello. And hopefully I can enjoy good food with you all on campus as well.
Wow, looking forward. All right. Thank you very much, Professor Donovan. Okay, so guys, I think we had a lot of insight from the AI itself and even leadership, entrepreneurships, and Professor Donovan has really given a very practical skills that are expected in your job market specifically later on, and it's practically a survival kit when you are growing up later. Okay, we have a little bit of time for discussions. Is there anyone who would like to raise questions or anything that you'd like to share? Please raise your hand or just open your mic or drop your question in the chat. We can take a couple of questions.
Hopefully I haven't put everyone to sleep. They in Friday
Definitely
morning.
not. Yeah. But one thing is that I was totally agree with all of your materials that you were sharing. And one interesting topic that was expressed by some of my students lately that they were saying, well, the idea of startup are really booming in Indonesia lately, right? The role of the entrepreneurships. But interestingly, with a lot of cases in the media and all that, they kind of hesitate to take a leadership role. So isn't that contradictory that they want to be an entrepreneur, but they don't want to step in the leadership roles? I think that's But I don't blame them. That's a very dynamic situation these days, and there are reasons on why people are, and especially the younger generation, are starting to come up to that positions where I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't want to be in the leadership position. So that, what do you think about that, Dr. Donovan?
But yeah, it's a really interesting personal dilemma, and I never considered myself a leader. Like fundamentally I'm an introvert. So I'm from a place called Tasmania. If you all don't know Tasmania, it's one of our smallest states in Australia. I'm lucky. I'm from a very educated family, but I thought, my life would be very different from what it is today. I don't even like when I was growing up, I feared public speaking. And now there could be 100,000 people on the call, and I've done a presentation with 40,000 people listening. I guess what I'm trying to say is where I've come from as an individual when I was a similar age as everyone here. I was deeply introverted. I did not like public presentations. To where I am now, I think a lot of that, and this touches on a little bit, I saw in the chat there around soft skills. My emotional intelligence, I have always been orientated around a sense of community and about relationships and the importance of that. Where I come from, you can't do anything wrong in my hometown. If you do something wrong, the entire town will know and it will be attached to your family. And my family was quite well known. My dad was a principal and very good at his job. And so there was a social pressure that we felt. And so some of my underlying skills that I developed just because of education and exposure ended up putting me in leadership roles because it's not your ability to stand out in front of a crowd necessarily that we're talking about. It's even without a title, as I mentioned before, it's your ability to influence other people. And it might be through an empathetic approach. You actually care about people's well-being. Some of the best leaders I've known have just been people that really care about other people. Like one of my colleagues from 10 years ago, he's now a provost at a top university, which means he's third most senior person. He was the best academic manager I saw, not because he was able to say, do all your research. He would go office to office and check in on people. How are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, have you talked to that person over there? So I guess the long answer to a short question is you may not perceive yourself as a leader, but some of the skills and some of the inherent traits of you may actually make you a leader, but a different type of leader from what you perceive. It may not be the one that stands up the front of a crowd screaming. It may be the person that stands in the crowd and is able to connect people and form relationships and build a culture from bottom up rather than top down. So yeah, startups do often show a certain type of leadership, but some of the most powerful leaders are not the ones that we see on the news. They're the ones that can transform and connect people from interpersonal skills and soft skills.
All right. The best reveal has that you can make impact even from anything that you have today. So we got 3 questions from the chat. The first one is from Chantika. As technical barriers to entry drop because of AI, while soft skills like empathy, cultural intelligence, and ethical intuitions become the primary competitive advantage for entrepreneurs. I think this is also in line with 2 other questions. This is about soft skills as well. The question from Intan, she's asking how can future business leaders balance global innovations with environmental sustainability? And Azila also asking what skills should future leaders develop to work effectively with AI? So all of these 3 questions are pretty much about the future skills that you are What do you think, Professor Jonathan?
Please call me Jerome. Yeah, I really do think soft skills are becoming more and more important and do resonate a lot more. And I do think as well, we tend to have minimum standards if I'm looking at young people for them getting work. You've done your degree, you've done some work experience, maybe you've done some um, community development work, you've got your personal activities for personal development, you've got multiple languages. Most people on the call today can speak at least one language, probably two languages. Um, so I think you have all of these minimum standards, but I think what's really coming out from discussions across the spectrum is soft skills are becoming more and more pronounced to be able to manage technological change, and particularly from a business standpoint. I find even with me, my demand is increasing with scientists, for example, because I have soft skills. And it's most certainly not my technical skills, and it's definitely my soft skills and my personality as well. Like I have no desire for leadership, and fundamentally for 25 years, but I end up in leadership style roles because of my personality. So I really think from graduation through to promotion, doesn't matter the industry you're in, those soft skills are really, really the competitive advantage. The rest of what I think we deal with soft skills a lot and we embed it into our curriculum. And I know Brajaya does this. I think the other ones are those tools. So it's not just technological tools that are important, but it's also those theoretical tools and understanding how to apply them that we teach in class. I think that's also important because you're essentially doing the same thing with Gen AI. You've got a whole series of assumptions you need to make before you use a certain tool. And you need to understand how to use that tool. AI, technology, same type of thing. So I think you've got those two interwoven elements that will become more important, but the most transparent are soft skills at the moment. And I think they will be a competitive advantage and a point of differentiation for people dealing with rapid technological change. The balance between global innovation and environmental sustainability. That's a really good question. And I wouldn't necessarily just say environmental sustainability. I do love the triple bottom line and the multiple perspectives. I don't think you can talk about innovation and entrepreneurship without thinking about sustainability. And there's all different ways that you do it. You can also talk about underlying the triple bottom line with financial sustainability for a company. And that's where we're kind of doing. I'm not sure how far I should go on this one, but I'll give you a little bit of information if you're interested. You can look later. We call it the double materiality analysis. So we have a materiality analysis which directs how most of you are business students, so how businesses engage with sustainability. And that says, okay, you've got, you could talk at ESG, you could talk about environmental, social, and economic. There's a range of different ways. Now, what we're saying is when you're operating as a business, it's not just about from a business lens looking at environmental issues, looking at social issues, looking at economic issues around the communities, but the double part of it from an organization, how do these issues impact from a financial standpoint, not for the bottom line, solely for the bottom line of the organization. It's kind of a cyclical process. So it's a double materiality analysis if you're interested in having a little bit more. So I think sustainability goes hand in hand what we do and everything we do. And I think there's more accountability. University of Brawijaya had some of the real leaders in Indonesia on corporate sustainability and accounting sustainability. Parker Eko, who heads up the International Organization for Sustainability officials. I've got the name a little bit off, but he's incredible, and the organization. That's through University of Braja for all of Indonesia. Like it's really quite incredible. So I think what we're seeing is sustainability is becoming part and parcel of normal business. From a global innovation lens, it becomes more complex and it becomes cross-border, it becomes multi-layered, and you're thinking supply chains, value chains, you're thinking cross-jurisdictional, it becomes more complex. But it needs to be at the heart of what we're doing. But you can also make it implicit, or it can just be fundamental. By implicit, I mean you could set up your organization with that fundamental idea of positive impact. That could change how you structure your organization, how you distribute profits, how you manage the organization, or business as usual now. I think business as usual now is saying, no, we need to do and look at sustainability in everything that we do. How good are businesses? I think every business is on a journey from, they're trying to do it and they're aware of it, through to really sophisticated businesses trying to engage in sustainability across everything they do. And I think Indonesia, Australia, Europe, US, business leaders are confronted by the challenge of how do we do it better because of social license, because of corporate reputation, because of impact investing. It's another thing for us to consider from a business lens. So I don't think there's a balance. I think it's inherent, and it's a relationship that should be fundamental for business looking at sustainability. What skills should food leaders develop effectively with AI? Yeah, I'd probably just go back to those core ones that I mentioned at the start with the future of work with WEF. So if you made note of those, the agility, flexibility, the creative and innovative thinking. I'd also, the flip side of that, go for those EQ, social influence-based ones around leadership, empathy, and understanding. I'm sorry. Growth strategy. So one of the key areas connected to people and teams. How does AI? Oh, that's a challenging question. That's a great one. So, the growth strategy, I would say, fundamentally is what differentiates startups and small business. This is from an Australian perspective. So I'll just put a little caveat there. So I talk to students all the time. What's the difference between you setting up like a local corner shop or a local restaurant, or you want to do a sole trader and be selling your design skills? What's the difference between that and a startup? And the fundamental thing that I always respond to first is your growth strategy. And the second thing is, the innovation. There's got to be something innovative. So what's the difference between a startup and a normal business is fundamentally a growth strategy. So I wouldn't necessarily link it to people and teams. I'd link it to the nature of the business. So our business is fundamentally, it's a startup. We're in the scale-up phase now with commercial traction. It's all about what is your growth strategy. Now, I don't think that's changed as a mentality and the differentiation for the last decade in Australia. It has changed the speed of what the expectation is for what your growth strategy is, depending on the type of product, depending on the type of market that you're looking at. So AI has enabled for a much more cost-effective way of achieving growth in some contexts. But depending on the technology, I still don't think AI is ever going to remove the understanding that you must have of your customers. It doesn't matter if it's like a fast-moving consumer good and you're selling eggs versus like what I'm doing, a deep tech company selling muon technology. I think in either context, you've got to understand the people that you're selling to. AI can't replace that, but it can scale that quicker for you once you've codified and understand the market and worked out your typology of customers and your go-to-market strategy, and I might have just said a whole bunch of words that don't have a lot of meaning for you at the moment, but if you dig into it a little bit later, I think once you've done the foundational work, which does require the interpersonal, the emotive, the EQ, and social influence skills, once you've done that, you can scale a lot quicker. And that's what the difference is that AI is enabled. It hasn't changed the focus, but it's put an emphasis on it being quicker. Well, these are some great questions, Layet.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I think due to time constraint, that will be the last questions that will be answered in the sessions. And I hope everyone take notes of a lot of things. This was really fruitful sessions. And I would like to deliver my gratitude and thank you very much to Professor Jerome Donovan for your precious times, and you still able to put our agenda in the middle of all of your to-do list today. And I'm sure that you have all the busy schedule packed, and we're very honored that we're in one of your agenda lists for today. So once again, thank you very much, Professor Donovan, and I hope to see you in person as well, a couple months from now, hopefully, in Malang. And have a good rest of the day. So that was the end of the session 1. I'd like to return it to our MC.